Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Mitchell FX here. So before we get into today's video, if you could firstly hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up, that would be massively appreciated. Right, I gave myself a little bit of a challenge in the last video, which I have explained, but I'm going to go over it again anyway, just as a little bit of an update. So I said I can only trade XAUUSD, so that is gold against the US dollar. Point number two, I said it has to be £100 deposit, so I'm starting with £100 only. I am looking for 1 to 2 trades per week, so nothing, I'm not looking for 15 trades a day or 15 trades a week. It's nothing too stressful. It's just a couple of trades a week, 1 to 2 trades a week. Minimum. I can do more, can do 3, 4 if any come up. However, 1 to 2 trades per week is all I'm looking for. It has to be a minimum of 2 to 1 risk to reward. However, I can hit a 3, 4, 5, 1 to 1 if I can. However, looking for a better minimum of a 2 to 1 risk to reward. Now, whatever my account is, the balance is, I can only risk 50% of the account per trade. So obviously I'm starting with £100. So first trade I'm risking 50%, so that is £50 risk. So half the account I'm risking. If I've got £1,000 in the account, then obviously 50% of 1,000 is £500. Right, I've literally just added this before starting the video, so wins, losses and break even, so we can keep track over the the course of this challenge, to see how far it goes, how many wins, losses we get, etc, etc. Right, moving on to this week's entries and exits. So this week I have taken 2 trades, 1 win and 1 loss. Okay, so moving back to the very start of this week, I will give you a rundown as to why I entered and why it did unfortunately hit stop loss. So previously I already had these highs and lows drawn, so these are my areas of interest for this week. This is the start of the week, by the way, this line down here, previous trend lines. So let me just get everything drawn up. You can see here we had 1, 2 touches sort of consolidated through here, so that was my trend line for here, and I had 1, 2 touches, and that was my trend line for here. So moving down to the smaller time frames, this is the 4-hour time frame. Now you can see obviously our trend line coming down and our trend line coming up. So first trade, let me firstly extend the lines to the right just to make it a little bit easier. So firstly, Monday I just kind of let it do what it needed to do on Monday, just to kind of moving on for the rest of the week, get a rough idea of where it was heading. So Monday it come into this area and pushed out. So Tuesday, when I was looking at it, it did push back up into this area. I thought, okay, Tuesday it's now come back up to this area for the second time. We're now going to get that momentum to push down and aim for this trend line here. And again, if I just put it on the daily time frame, looking at those bigger time frames, I was looking at it here and I saw a left shoulder here, a head here, we'd come down to about here. You can't really see that wick, but it was about here. We'd come up, so I thought, around this sort of level, look, we're now going to start to form a right shoulder. I want to catch that early and try and catch it back down to this trend line here, which again taps into this level, all these highs here, this support, this high. So that it was my initial analysis and thought that this was now the beginning to form the top down to the downside. However, and again, let me just draw it. Where is it? So this big push down here, so we're going to go from this. So we went from the top, we formed a lower low, lower high. So we go from this big push down all the way down to this lower low. Now, I did think down to this point here, it's tapped into the golden zone once, it's tapped into it again. I thought, oh, you know, this is, by the time I'd woken up and entered, it was about 10 o'clock. So I thought, oh, this is going to look good. However, you know, if I bring it down a little bit, you know, again, we had a massive bullish candle. We had another bullish. It was slightly smaller than the last one. Another bullish, slightly smaller than the last one. So as you can sort of see, I thought the momentum each hour was just slowing down, slowing down. And as we got, you know, here, and then this is the candle that I entered on. So it really did slow down into this zone. So I thought, you know, I'm going to seize the opportunity and try and get in that sell to head down here. However, as you can see, after 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, it did literally just about tap into stop loss by about half a pip. However, you know, it did come back down into profit, but inevitably it still would have hit stop loss anyway. So we lost this one here. And then, so that was Tuesday I entered. Moving on, Wednesday, I woke up and was looking at it. Again, let me just put it on to the 4 hour to look at this. So Wednesday, let me just get rid of this just to make life a little bit easier. There we go. So moving on from that loss here, you know, I let it play out through the night while I was sleeping. UK time, I woke up 6 a.m. I looked, and I started to see that it had pushed out of this area and started to come back in. So my initial thought was, you know, we're back in this area of interest, my area of interest, but now we are above it, so we are looking for buys. And then I thought, right, if I'm looking for buys, where could we head to? Initially I was looking, okay, maybe somewhere around here. It might tap into the trend line. We could also come back up here into this area here. So I did get into a buy. I did, you know, get into it a little bit early. However, I was looking at this huge bullish candle here. I thought as the London session kicks off, it is going to start to get that momentum up. However, it did pull down quite a bit, you know, a couple of pips off, what was it, 16, 17, 18, 19, so like 3 pips from my stop loss. However, you know, our support resistance area proved to be correct because we had that in huge push to the upside. Now, I did not have a TP on here. I was just monitoring it and keeping an eye on it. So it actually, when it hit a 2 to 1, was here and it was above the trend line. Now, when it was here, I thought initially we're just going to have a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a rejection from this trend line back into this support resistance area here and a push up, but it did come right the way back down. Now, I can't lie, I was a little bit nervous. Let me put this back exactly where it was because this is my exact, you know, entries, exits, etc. So it did come down quite a bit, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous when it was sort of around this area here. However, I got the fib out and I went from this huge push up here to around about here where it started to come back down, and I could see we was roughly in that golden zone, you know, and again all these highs here. So I was a little bit confident in the sense of, you know, once I checked it as such, I thought, right, well, you know, we're pushing out, it has retraced, you know, there's a fair value gap right here. Let me just draw that. There's a fair value gap right there. It's in the golden zone. So when we was around here, I started to think, okay, buyers might start to come into play now. I'm a holdout still, and you know, turns out that was correct, and it did start to push up. So just as it started to come out and just a little bit above it, I did close it here because, you know, we'd already rejected the trend line once as it started to push up, and you know, as it went into here, I thought, you know, maybe now, going back to the daily, I thought maybe now around here we are going to start to see that shoulder and it is going to come down. So I thought, I'm going to get out now while I'm in profit. I've hit that 2 to 1, let's get out and we can, you know, we can always get into another trade. So I did close it. However, you know, if I'd have left it, it would have literally been almost a 6 to 1. It was a 5.5 to 1, so that could have been a very good trade if I'd have held it. However, I didn't. I closed it, and that was entry number 2. So we had entry number 1 hit stop loss, entry number 2 hit TP at a 3 to 1, and again, these are my exact entries. stop losses and TPs. So I did close this at exactly 3382.69, sorry. Moving on to Thursday, we had a little bit of consolidation. So again, if I just move this to the smaller time frame, you can see here, right on my trend line, you can see it there, look, bounced off. And then here, that was a rejection level for a couple of times, 3-4 times, straight into my support resistance. So it bounced off, hit the trend line, bounced off, hit the trend line, bounced off, hit the trend line, before eventually deciding we are going up. Now, Thursday, what I wanted to see was it come down, and I was hoping it would have done something like this, come back down, and I could have either entered in the support resistance area that I had drawn up here, or tap into this trend line. Again, if I'm drawing the fib, you can already see this is why it didn't happen. In the golden zone, it had already decided we're in the golden zone, we're going to push up. So it didn't quite come back down to here, which is what I was hoping for. I'm hoping next week it'll start to pull down so I can get into buys. If you're looking at the market, at the bigger picture, you can see, let me get rid of all the drawings, you can see we are starting to create higher highs, higher lows over the daily time frame. So moving over to the 4 hour, you can see a load of higher highs, higher lows right there. So over this week, as you can see, we were very bullish. So I'm hoping now, and we are at the all-time high, which is here. I do have everything marked out. I do like to follow gold. Gold is my main asset that I trade. I've been following it all week, all yearly. As you can see, I do mark out every single week's open. So that is my week of trading. I will show you now the account where we're at. So you can see it's still the same account. You can see all the entries, exits, etc, etc. So obviously I wanted to get in again, but it didn't come down to the level I wanted. These resistance levels here, and included the trend line. It just didn't come in, so we did not enter. So I'm hoping next week, potentially we can get into a couple of buys moving on into next week. So if now I'm about to open up the account and share it on the screen, you will see, obviously right here, you can see XAUUSD. So it's just one pair that I'm still trading. I haven't added anything, I haven't taken anything away. It is purely just XAUUSD. If I head over to settings, you can still see it is the same account. Even if you run back and check on the last video, you can still see it is the same account, and it is a live account. So again, gold, US dollar, it's the same account. Moving on to the charts, as obviously you can see there, nothing's changed. It's gold, US dollar. Because I lost one, right? So lost one and won one. We're actually up by £6.48. So we're up by 6%, if you want to look at it that way. Moving on to history, you can now see all the history from this week. So you can see my initial £100 deposit. You do get credited a deposit bonus, so I was credited £20 there. However, you can see a deposit of £100. First trade I lost, working out the lot size was 0.04, so that was 50%, which obviously you can see £120 in the account. It lost £59.12, so half of the account. Then looking for my second entry was the buy. Working out the lot size was 0.02. Hit that buy. You can see that I closed that manually. That hit stop loss, which is why it's got the red line. However, the buy entry did not have a TP, which is why it's not green next to it. It is just a straight entry and exit right there that I closed myself. And because it went a little bit over, it ran at a 2.3 risk to reward. We actually made a little bit more, which was £7.65 over our initial loss. So we made our money back and some more. which now puts the account balance on £126.48. But if you going off my balance, my initial deposit, it's actually at £106.48 minus the £20 deposit bonus, making it a total of 6.48% profit for this week. It's been unfortunate about that first loss. If we'd have just had that win, we would have doubled the account in week one, which would have been insane, to be fair, to double the account. That's a huge percentage profit wise. However, it is what it is. I did try and I was looking out for that third entry. However, it just didn't happen, so there's no point being stupid, no point entering, because at the end of the day, when you're clicking enter, you potential to lose money. When you're not clicking the button, you're not losing money. It's very, very simple. So again, one last look, you can see there it is the same account, it is a live account. You can see the history right there, and there's the balance, etc., and you can still see that it is gold. Right, so we have had so far, moving into here, let's add this in. So we've had, let's put the loss in first. We have had one loss and one win. However, working on the percentage rule, so we're 50%, so we lost half of the account, so 120, so we lost 60, but then because we had a double, so we had £60 in the account, so we were risking 30, hitting that 2 to 1, but because it was a little bit over 2.3, we actually made £67 back. So we risked £30 of our account because we had £60 balance, if this makes sense to you. So we made £67 back, so that put us back to break even and some more, just to cover the swap over this trade run over. When did I enter? Wednesday at 6 AM, and it closed it at the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. Oh no, I didn't, sorry, I closed it at 10 AM on Thursday, so it was over a day's trade. So I did get charged a little bit swap, so I thought, while it's just going over 2 to 1, I'm gonna close it, get some of that swap money back. So we are back to break even and some more. Like I said, making 6% this week, which isn't too bad going. Moving on to the next week, I'm gonna give you a rundown of my plan, what I'm hoping to achieve next week. I've already said I'm hoping for it to come back down to these levels somewhere. Let's see if I just move that up here out of the way a minute. Let's just put it there. I'm hoping the all-time high is at this level, 3,500, 3,500. I'm hoping now we start to create, as you can see here. Let me draw some lines. We've got this downwards movement, and then we've got a higher high, higher low, 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 higher high. I'm not going to include this bit because that was the end of the week. You can see there, that is just beautiful highs and lows, and all the way up. I mean, you can definitely tell that that's going up from the lowest point to the top point. So I'm hoping now, if we put this parallel to this here, I'm hoping that we start to see a pullback down from here somewhere to this support zone, this resistance zone now, the trend line area, and then target this high. I'm then hoping something similar again. We do have a lot of support here now, so if I was to drop this down, you can see here we've got a lot of support here now. So I'm hoping, oh dear, so I'm hoping now, let me draw it up, comes back down to maybe somewhere around here or here, pushes up, we take out that high, comes back down somewhere around the trend line, it hits this support here, we either then target above and above the high, and then it comes back down again, similar sort of thing, test out these highs, and then eventually taking out that high. So again, if we just put that side by side like that, you can see right there that we are continuing this uptrend, and it is definitely 100% running up. I mean, there's no denial there that it's coming down. Trend is your friend at the end of the day. You want to be trending with it. buying with it, sorry, or selling with it, you can see a mile off just from that it is up. So while it is continuing to go up, why not buy it? If it was coming down, I'd be looking for sales like I did here. However, you know, as you can see there, I am looking for buys following this trend line, following the support resistance. You know, there is at this key level, let me just make it a little bit smaller. As you can see here, I look to the left slightly, you can see we are at a resistance level here. So I do think now it is going to pull back. We could do with it pulling back, if I'm honest, to, you know, potentially get into another trade. And again, we've got all this liquidity up here, this high. So hopefully we can start to continue these higher highs, higher lows to take this back out. So it comes back down here, then create higher highs to take this out and this. So that is my rundown for this week. That is where we are. You know, as you can see, I've been completely honest. I'm not going to hide anything. In fact, while I'm here, just before I get off the video, let me put it down. Again, I like to just kick it in. What will the date be tomorrow? Let me have a look. It will be the 16th, week commencing the 16th. So that is where we are. Again, next Sunday I will give a rundown on this week, upcoming week, on wins, losses, etc, etc. And again, I'm just going to be 100%. I'm not going to hide nothing, because at the end of the day, what's the point? I'd rather just be honest and say, you know, why it lost, or how it lost, or why it won, how it won, why it won, you know what I mean? Etc, etc. And hopefully we can continue to do what we're doing and grow the account. But that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you could just hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, I would appreciate it massively. Peace out.